morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Apurv Malik, and I welcome you all here in this webinar on behalf of TNV Academy as the host of the day. First of all, let me introduce the speaker of the day. For today's webinar, we are glad to have Mr. Ajay Bajpai with us as the guest speaker. The topic with which he is here today with all of us is ISO 37001 Anti Bribery Policy that is covered under clause 5.2 of the standard. This is a topic in which we all must be deeply interested as ISO 37001 is a very new addition to the ISO family and now is being used by several organizations to eradicate the malpractice of bribery from their processes and operations. Mr. Ajay Bajpai has audited several organizations for ISO 37001 standard and has assisted several others in the implementation of the same. If we talk about his overall educational background, our distinguished speaker, Mr. Ajay Bajpai, has done his bachelor's in engineering in metallurgy stream. He is also a lead auditor in ISO 9001, 14001, 45001, 37001, 22000, 27001, 13485, 22301, and 50001 standards respectively. Talking about his industrial experience, he has an industrial experience of around 38 plus years in field of manufacturing, design, quality control, and quality assurance. He has been imparting training to a number of organizations, entrepreneurs, and individuals on various topics related to ISO terminologies and how ISO standards are implemented within organizations. It was just a brief introduction of our guest speaker today. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Ajay Bajpai. I may request Mr. Ajay Bajpai now to please take over and start the webinar.
Thank you very much, Apurv and team. I welcome you all in this webinar on anti-bribery policy. I was just trying to invite some of the person who said they will join, so I was just into that. Let me see if I can send a reminder to them. But this is a new subject, as we all understand. The standard has been only issued just 6 years back, but somehow it has not become so popular as in relation to other standards. So there are companies who are trying to get into this, they are trying to understand it, and they're also trying to implement, the various elements of this. So we thought, okay, let us discuss this subject in details on how to implement the, you know, ABMS system through anti-bribery policy. So this policy subject we have discussed into various seminars on quality policy, environment policy, and other policies. So now we are into a situation we are discussing the subject on anti-bribery policy, which is the clause 5.2 of 37001 2016. I have just in between send a reminder to others who said they will join. I don't know what is the situation. They may join in between, so we continue the discussion from here. You see, this subject is very simple to look at. Everyone would understand the corruption and the anti-corruption and bribing and anti-bribery globally. We have conducted a seminar on this earlier onto the subject with the role of governing body, to support the ABMS management system. A lot of inputs we have discussed that time, but now we straight away going to the anti-bribery policy and what is all are the requirements and how we are going to initiate it into the organization. So number one, it starts with the establish, means we need the top management will establish it and then maintain and then review an anti-bribery policy. So this establishment, maintaining and review is a part of the ABMS policy. So what it does, the elements calls for prohibits bribery. We have been discussing earlier and the global teams on this subject have been discussing. It will come next also into the series that yes, bribery was there, it is there, it will remain there. But our efforts with the support of AB policy is to see that yes, we can prohibit, we can control, we can reduce, we can, conduct the analysis of it into different teams. We will discuss that further. Also, it needs to be in compliance with the anti-bribery laws that are applicable to the organization. Various organization into various kind of sectors. When they are into QA, QC, inspection, logistics, they are into the educational field, they are into the inspection field, they are into the training fields, and there are certain fact elements into various countries where the laws are very very typical and critical with respect to an organizational process and functioning. So that is what the policy tries to see, that yes, it can see that yes, compliance to this is achieved. It is appropriate to the purpose of the organization. Into third party auditing, we have seen the companies will do some copy paste of the policies which is not appropriate to the purpose of the organization. This is also we'll discuss. It also provides a framework for setting, reviewing, and achieving anti bribery objectives. So, how the policy will be achieved, that will be through the setting and reviewing and the achievement and target setting and through the smart anti-bribery objectives. And then what happens, it also needs to have a commitment to satisfy the ABMS requirement, the management system requirement. An organization of mine into a logistics operation, into a supply chain category wants to meet the requirement. So ABMS, it sometimes and most of the times is the initial point with the help of AB policy to start the process. It depends upon organization to organization, but most of the organization, our experience is yes, first let's the top management come into the situation and give guidance to the core team and go into the drafting and implementation of the policy. It is also very important that it is encouraging concern in good faith. We have been into auditing and certification for last almost 40 decades, and we have understood what is the good faith of certification and inspection. There are a lot of organizations who are into this activity, but conceptually this good faith is lost somewhere down the line because of the reasonable belief and confidence. The confidence has to be created by whom? Number one, from yourself, then from the management, then from the interaction with the interested party, customer, and so on, without the fear of a reprisal and which is called the punishment. Most of this term has come from military action, the defense actions, where the fears are there. If you make a complaint, if you want to raise your voice, you may have a situation of trouble for you. A punishment may be in the next drawer for you. So you have to be careful what you are doing, how you are doing. But this is we are talking of the policy. So policy will require that yes, without fear and without having this thing, develop the confidence and go on. So that's the theme for the implementation of the anti-bribery policy. We go further and we see what all elements it will include. It includes a commitment to continual improvement of the ABMS. We are talking of continual improvement through class 2. The linkages also we'll see in next slides. So this continual improvement will come how and why and what way? Through AB policy. It should indicate yes that we are committed toward that. The top management commitment, the respective level of commitment. Now when we talk of leadership, into class 5, everybody is a leader. So everybody is a top management, and explained also the authority and independence of anti-bribery compliance function through various authorities and responsibility defined through governing body and top management functions. It also have a link to that. Also it explains the consequences of not complying with anti-bribery policy. When we are defining the AB policy, it also gives a indication and links through objectives and governing body functions and the top management function, and through clause 5 leadership responsibility authority, that how if you do not comply, what are going to be the results and the impacts and the efforts lost into the organization. So the consequences will be seen. Also anti-bribery policy shall have what? It should be available as a documented information. So when we are into a first party, second party, third party audit situation, we would like to see that yes, this is available as a documented information in the company in various ways which we verify as an auditor. We'll discuss that further. Also, it is communicated in appropriate languages when we are doing cross-country, inter-countries, and global auditing. We also want to have a focus on to the appropriateness of the language because of the language not being clear, not understood, not being explained by the auditee or the team of the organization. It may have an impact onto the performance of the implementation of ABMS, and also it should be related to the impact onto the business associate who also pose more than a low risk of bribery. We have business associate into a lot of activity, particularly logistic operations, supply chain operations, and particularly into inspection and quality control functions and training or auditing function when we have got a lot of subcontracting going on. So, what are the situations into the bribery and what are the risks? That is one of the part of the anti-bribery policy element as such. Also, it should be available to the relevant stakeholder as appropriate. This is one standard which is involving the top management directly. That is why in governing body functions we have seen that yes, we need a top management person to represent the ABMS system, the policy, the objectives, and the governing body function. So from that, it just linked that yes, there are stakeholders into the organization who mean a lot with respect to the business purpose and business association. So they need to be taken care when we are defining, documenting, and communicating the AB policy. So this was the theme which we have discussed. Now we go further. What are the desired results when we are going into anti-bribery policy? We definitely want to understand what do we achieve out of it ultimately. So number one is the concepts of linkages with various clauses. Number one is 5.5, the top management. 6.1, risk and opportunity. 6.2, ABMS objective. 7.3, the awareness and training. Clause 10, improvement. So these are the linkages which are directly making an impact or it is clearly understood into the clauses when we go into further into implementation as an organization, and where all to review the policy, where all the policy will really make an impact into the implementation. What all happens when we go into the ABMS policy? The team is trained on the concept of AB policy. When we are into auditing, we don't want to listen to the just the voice of the auditee by reading the onto the boards, onto the papers, onto the different systems, but we want to understand that yes, they have understood the concepts as defined by the organization and they know if they do not follow this what is going to happen into the organization. Also, it gives assurance that the ABMS system can achieve its intended results. When an organization is going for ABMS certification, they have certain thoughts. The management have got certain plans. Management has got some vision and direction. So this needs to be looked into and it is achieved through the implementation of this. And also it needs a global requirement, the SDG Sustainable Development Goals as set by UN, and also it meets at times the customer requirement. The customer has sometimes laid down a specified requirement that yes, you as an organization need to implement ABS because we have faced certain and maybe at times a lot of issues. So they have requirement. So once we are able to define and implement a good AB policy, yes, the requirements are met and moving on. Is suitable and question answers clarity. When we are into the documentation implementation, it should be auditable generally, normally. It is the job of the auditors to find out, but if language meaningful and logical, this thing is not into the language and the documentation of the AB policy, then how it will be audited internally, how the second party and third party audits will take place. So the concepts of proper language, meaningfulness of the AB policy, and logical documentation, logical implementation are part of it so that it becomes auditable and we can move on further improvements. Also, it meets the needs of the interested parties. Interested parties have got a lot of requirements with respect to anti-bribery, as we discussed into the first two slides. So we need to meet their requirements and their needs as well. As we discussed, also it means the mission, vision, and direction of the top management. Top management has taken a decision, yes, that they are going to implement ABMS. So they have given direction to the core team of implementation to document and implement the policy. So it also gives directions of that, and we go in hand to hand with this. So we go next. Now we have to plan the AB policy. How do we plan to move further? We have got the mission, direction, vision from the company top management. So now we need to draft. We always say draft the policies and objectives and the documentation first, not copy paste from here and there, and not just do and write and start implementation without involving the team. So drafting is a critical part of AB policy, the documentation and respective approvals. We have seen into auditing at times that yes, AB policy is there, and then when we go into the details, somebody will say, yes, sir, I don't know who has approved it. I don't know, sir, we have not understood, but it has been documented and approval also somehow has been done. So when we talk of a management system, drafting, documentation, and approvals are key part of it. Then provide training to the teams. Teams need to be trained. Sometime into auditing, we say, yes, sir, the team is trained, but it's not a team. This is teams into a complex and critical multinational organization. There are teams which are starting from the association of the peons to the association of the managers to the association of directors. Maybe in a large set of organization we have seen. So these all teams, which includes the teams of the interested party with respect to the transportation, supply chain linkages, they need to be trained on to the concepts and the requirement of the AB policy. Then we need to get into the situation of display. How we are going to see that the planning of AB is going through the implementation mode. So that is to be done through various displays, which can be physical, which can be cart, which can be entry point, exit point, whatever way, so that the teams are understanding it. That yes, today organization ABC, the supply chain management company is going for AB policy to start the process of ABMS into their organizations. Also available on website. Various organizations have clear concept that yes, once we display it on a website, the entire the supply chain community, the teams who are interested parties and all, the moment they get into our website, scrolling, they will know that yes, we are concerned about the anti bribery this thing, and there is a policy available. So let's be clear conceptually when we are dealing with ABC supply chain company, and we follow their methodology of policies, and we get into the similar shoes when we are working with them. Also, there are various kinds of softwares and hardwares available. SAP, ERPs are there into the companies, so they are communicating it through various displays and all with the support of software. So depending upon what kind of software we have, one can utilize it for the anti-bribery policy communication and displays. Communication within the organization and all interested parties. Again, this is a repeat, but this communication within and throughout the organization, interested parties and the teams is very important, so that conceptually the teams are on to the same wavelength and implementation is going on as desired by the top management. So now the planning part of it done. So now what do? We make action plan for implementation. So whatever we have thought that this is the anti-bribery policy and this is how we are going to implement and this is our policy plan. So we now get into the action mode, and yes, drafting has been done. So now we are going to see how it is going to be implemented into the organization. There are organizations who will develop a chart of implementation. How the AB policy will be implemented. There's the chart so that it can be tracked. The responsibilities and authorities are defined. How it will be implemented in my Japan unity. This chart will indicate how in Hong Kong. This is the indication by chart. How this will be indicated in the southeastern countries. How into the UAE. So all this will be indicated by a policy chart. It is the case of multilateral, multi-locational organization. Even if a small company, it depends upon how they want to implement it. So a chart helps the organization. Then monitoring of all relevant processes. There are companies we have seen who will just try to implement it into sometimes the irrelevant processes also, and they waste time. So we always suggest that monitoring of all relevant processes and plans as per anti-bribery policy. Some processes are related, some are not related, some are directly related, some are indirectly related. So, depending upon the intelligence of the core team, they conduct the implementation and then further monitoring. And at the same time, at all stages, an analysis of AV policy is a ongoing process. When we go into the auditing, some clients, some auditing will reply, yes, sir, we will review it after 1 month. We'll review it after 3 months. Analysis can be done only. We said no, can be no reviewing after 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. It is your own organizational system. You have found out something which is not supporting the AB implementation. So, analysis and ongoing improvements and fine tuning of the draft of the policy is responsibility of the entire team. And don't wait for the month or the week or the annual review to come. Send a feedback to the core team coordinator, send a feedback to the GB, and so on. And the improvements are on with this analytical mode. So that's the action plan, and we are going into further. Now, full implementation is on because the drafting, etc., of EB has been done. So now what we do? We run the AB policy in various functions as per the plan. It is important to see as per the plan. We never suggest anything to go without a good, effective PDCA thing into practice everywhere into the AB management system. So, with respect to policy and plans, what functions we have decided, we run it. We run the race of AB policy into the organization and see who becomes first. If it is a 10 units we have, who is going to have 80-90% of implementation, who is lacking, and so on. So the run is very, very important. And then the effectiveness of policy implementation. The team should have always a thought into the mind, which should be conceptually clear, that we need to enhance the effectiveness of policy implements as an ongoing process. What was the policy drafted 3 months back may not be appropriate today. So how to enhance the effectiveness? Get into the analytical mode that we discussed and see that effectiveness is going to be enhanced as an ongoing process. We have got the policy charts with the support of the objectives. So we need to keep on updating the data always, not wait for the next review to come. You have feedback, update the data, update the charts so that we know what is the direction of our policy implementation into the organization, into the different units, or this unit or Y unit or Z unit of the company or XYZ department of the organization, because all the teams are important and each and everybody as defined and as per the plan is equally important to give input and feedback to the core team and to the GB function and to the objective planning charts, so that the conduct of accurate and precise calculation is done after implementation. We have started implementation in the month of July 2022. So now we reach December 2022. So we need to have a feedback coming from the chart. So what do? We conduct a accurate and precise calculation after implementation. We don't expect them to go by feelings and thoughts and so on. Yes, sir, I made a visit to the Hong Kong unit last week for a marketing discussion. The plan was to have a marketing discussion, but I come back, give a feedback to the core coordinator sitting in UK, and try to give a feedback. Oh, yes, sir, good, sir, so good implementation was on in Hong Kong unit for AB policy. No, that's not correct. Nothing good, nothing feeling, nothing of that sort. We need to be have a purposeful visit. If it is with an agenda to review the policy implementation in Hong Kong unit, yes. Then a feedback to London coordinator on the situation is good with the support of accurate and precise calculation. You can say yes. 85.2% implementation of AB policy as per the chart was verified by me. So then you have a meaning to give a feedback to the core coordinator or to the GB, and not just like that share that yes it was good, yeah I found it was up, yeah I found the displays was, yeah I saw the SAP ERP system going on well with respect to AB. We don't appreciate it because they don't take organization towards a direction which is desired by the organization, and which is the main theme of continual improvement with the support of management principles and the PDCA cycles and so on. Once we have this calculation done, then what we do? We are reviewing the facts and figures with the involvement of all, who all, as per the plan, as per the core team plan, as per the plan of the GB, as per the plan of the functions which we have decided. So we review the facts and figures by the help of accurate and precise calculations after the implementation. And then when the teams are involved, then we can take a decision to move on further of what all can be done to see that yes, AB policy is implemented the way it was desired into the organization of my supply chain management category ABC company having 10 multinational units and so on. And then we see the effectiveness through analytical mode. So now we have implemented. So what do we do? So now the implementation is done and we are observing it for last couple of months. So now what do? We are going into the analysis and future actions. This is something which will decide upon what is the performance of mine today after 6 months of implementation in December 2022. The journey started from July 2022. 6 months have passed. So now the policy charts are available and they need to be studied in small groups and cross-functional teams. We always say one type of department involved, one cross-functional team involved, small groups activity. These are the activities into the organization will help us to review the situations of AB implementation on a continual improvement path, and then they give us directions, and we now have the data available. After 6 months we have got the data available with us. Data of what? AB policy implementation done by our team. We have got policy objective charts available with us, and we do this analysis by different techniques. Every organization, depending upon their organization cultures, depending upon their method of productions, automation, and so on, they use the techniques to do the analysis of this data and monitor the data which has been gathered under discussion by these teams. And now we have the data available. So we do the analysis of this and we can take actions to further improve upon. The charts tell us what is the direction in various organizations, various setup of ours, various units, various departments, various functions. What is the situation in the core team itself? How they have implemented into them, which is something is being missed. The core team is following everybody, but they themselves don't follow themselves. So once we are able to do that, then we come into an effective internal auditing situation of AB policy implementation. Who can audit a AB policy implementation function? Not anybody. An auditor who is trained, we always say trained and qualified. Training has been given to him and also he has been qualifying or qualified himself through the conduct of a review and examination done, and he has passed that, and he has been given the inputs to conduct this function adequately by the core team, by the GB heads, by the GB coordinators, by the so-called management representatives or the coordinator, whatever name we call. They are going to develop a checklist and they are going to give a training to the internal auditors, they are knowing the concepts of the AB policy as we discussed. The concepts are clear, so they can conceptually conduct the audit of internal auditing functions of themselves and of the other department. Because into third party auditing, we have seen the core departments functions are many times weak because they are focusing on to the implementation of other departments. So this is one area we, by the experience of our global auditors, have seen that yes, the internal auditing team himself and themselves are finding themselves into weak when the auditing it. Either they leave it, they don't do it. Even if they do it, they say yes, no. So they themselves are not falling into a situation which is expected out of them. So now the internal auditing is done. The charts are available. The NC file is ready. The NC formats are filled. The observation formats are filled, depending upon what is the policy of the internal auditing of an organization. So once we have the data coming out of internal audit on AB policy implementation, then what do? We are seeing a direction, and the direction of positive, negative, plus minus 80, 90%, whatever we have achieved through an effective auditing system of trained auditors is going for a AB policy review, management review meeting, GB function review meeting. You know, we are going to review it in details. We have got the charts available, we have got the data available, we have got the managers into the meeting as per the plan, whosoever are required as a management review meeting agenda and responsibility functions and the plan of the organization. We are going to have a meeting and we are going to review the policy, the implementation of policy and the effectiveness of policy into the organizational various units, various departments, various functions. We have seen into auditing that sometimes the organization will just say, yeah, reviewed, AV policy is very good, excellent, fine. We are happy with that. But we as an auditors are very, very unhappy. The moment the organization will show us okay, not okay, happy, unhappy, decent, indecent, excellent, very good, we becomes a unhappy lot of the auditors, and we say, what is this going on? We don't see the organization going on to the direction which is the requirement of the management standard with the support of AB policy, unless the facts and figures are presented, represented, and the responsibility targets are tracked and defined into the organization management review meeting, and the GB review is done effectively. We don't find any fun of conducting this activity. So we call it a fun of conducting this activity only when we have data, documents, the tracking, the percentage, the formulation, the direction, the responsibility, the authority, the next tracking defined and all is here, and it is done for a sufficient enough time depending upon the size and type of the organization and depending upon what kind of the the process, the resources, and the policy and the scopes they have. They know thumb rules for that, but yes, when we say sufficient time, they themselves, when they conduct the internal audit of this function, the team should be able to come out with point whether this has been effective or not. And then when it is shown to us, demonstrated to third party audits, they get confidence. Yes, by question answers of the management, the top management, the GB functions, the internal auditors, trained and qualified internal auditor, which they call so-called, but we understand how effective they are into the conduct of this function. And then what happens? The implementation plans are further reviewed, further tracking and implementation monitoring is decided by the team for their future plans of policy, whether the drafting which has been done 3 months or 6 months back is accurate, correct or not. We see into the organization, particularly when we go for surveillance audits and decertification audits, particularly into the second or third cycle of the certification, and we found, oh, it's the same policy, same objectives, so we really do not appreciate that, and we sometimes feel that organization is sleeping on policy and objective, which is not a good sign for, particularly for anti-bribery policy and ABMS systems and ABMS review and the GB review. Because unless there are changes, the suggestions are coming, unless the improvements are taking place, policy is not forever, we always say. The diamonds are forever, maybe, but policy is not forever. The organization who wants to bring improvement, they keep on drafting, redrafting, and revising and upgrading their policies across the globe. If this is a global organization, then we appreciate. Yes, this is a organization who seems to be running towards improvement from the AB policy. And yes, it is being realized through the implementation, through various reviews, and we are into an analytical mode all the time and see the improvements are brought about. So we are talking of improvement and AB policy and ABMS as your overall system. So we keep on tracking, monitoring, and see that the policy is improved upon. And our intent of ABMS implementation initially, the getting certified, secondly, going through surveillance audit, thirdly, approaching recertification, and improvements are seen as an ongoing process into the organization when we go as a third party auditors or second party auditors, or even when we conduct the internal audit as a first party organizational team, and we see that yes, improvements are there, so our blood corpus increases, we feel yes, we are happy. So that is what is the happiness coming out for auditors if the improvements are seen into the AB policy and ABMS. Once we are able to do that, the implementation are on. Now we have reached the December situation 2022. So now we thought of certifications. We need to apply to certification body. There are various certification bodies available. One of which is we belong to TNV certification private limited with IAS accreditation. We have done number of organizations certified globally, and we are very happy to say that yes, they have shown improvements and they have been more than satisfied with our auditors available as a global resources. We also conduct a lot of training courses, accredited training courses from Exemplar Global INC with respect to ABMS ISO 37001 and various other lead auditor courses. And we are just now in the process of organizing the transition courses for ISO 27001 2022. So one can visit our website, and our website are very, very informative and can further understand what is the certification process, what is the upgradations of the auditors with respect to any standard. So all this is possible when we go into the details of the various websites of our certification bodies. So this is what I thought I had to discuss. I just have a quick review of what all we have discussed because it is important to understand this new concept. Organizations are being certified globally, but still the trends are not that much encouraging. The standard have been, released in 2016. After 6 years, also the progress is not that good. So we want to propagate this because we want to see the requirements of SDG being met, Sustainable Development Goals. How the globally, if we can control the bribery, we can reduce it, we can prohibit, then we can satisfy the entire global requirement, and the money, the economics available to the globe and the resources are utilized effectively and not going down the drain, means not getting converted into the black money. It is the white money, it is the available money for the society, for the organization, which is being utilized for the development and for the purpose of the organization. So this is all of the element. First of all, the understanding the continual improvement, the concepts and so on is important, and we need to understand the linkages with various other clauses. All clauses of standards ABMS are interrelated, we always say, but specific interrelations are here 5, 6, 6.2, 7.3 and 10, so that when we are going into implementation, first, second party, third party audit, we look for direct link to these further clauses and sub clauses. Then we talk of conceptual training of the teams. We see that yes, customer requirements, the language clarity is always there, whether this is South Africa or this is Hong Kong or this is Saudi Arabian country, the language should be meeting to the concept and the culture of their organization, maybe their district and centers or whatever, and meets the requirement of the interested parties as well, and the vision and mission direction of the top management, which we will see through different kind of documentation, drafting, and approvals, and providing team to the teams, not to the team. I always said available on website, implemented through various software system. We have seen into organizations that they implement and they utilize various softwares today, but we always want to suggest and we always want to see that are those softwares being implemented by taking inputs from their teams, and have their teams been into involved into the implementation with the support of the good softwares which are there. The softwares are good, but the intentions when we implemented were not supporting the implementation. Then the action plans are to be made. Without a good action, without good planning, we cannot get into the AB implementation and review and analysis. Then implementation is on in all the department, all the units, all the functions. If we are looking for a certification of all 10 units together, we cannot leave one of them because one of the units is left out. There is a major non-conformity coming out. What happens? The entire organization will have an impact of that. So we need to see the effectiveness of policy implementation is an ongoing process, and data of policy with the support of objective chart is being updated. We always respect and believe, and we are happy when we say as an auditors, with the support of accurate and precise calculation, fact and figures, not the feelings and yes, excellent, good, and so on. Then we get into an analytical mode here after the implementation of 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever is the plan and the organizational structure and situation is available. So we do all this and then we go into the certification. So this is all I thought I have to discuss today with the team who is attending this webinar. If you have questions, you are most welcome. So it is now to Apur, Rishabh, and few other names which were there into meeting when we started. They can ask questions. Thank you.
I would request the participants if they have any questions as of now, so they can please one by one go on and ask their questions in sequence.
Sir, I have a question.
Hmm.
Sir, is whistleblowing policy also a part of ABMS policy?
It depends upon the organization, what all they want to include when we are going to document and draft the policy. They not direct requirement as such, yes, but that is something good which will be seen into the further documentation and with the support of objectives, policy, then GB function and other function that, and they can include that as a part into their policy, and maybe when we go into the details objectives.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Bajpayee, this is Ramesh Koregave from Quality Austria.
Yes, Ramesh.
A small question with respect
Yeah.
to 5.2, the requirement defining the H element explains the authority and independence of anti-bribery compliance function.
Yeah.
So, as I understand, the English here is that the authority and independence of the AB compliance function need to be defined. But does the policy should talk about, or it can be talked about somewhere else within the manuals?
You see, it is not
And
directly
if
linked. It
yes,
is directly
if
linked
yes,
to
how?
the 5 point function only. But it depends upon, how much you want to, make an insistence when you are going to implement, and particularly when you are going to draft your policy. What is your organizational function, particularly when you are into a QA/QC function, how you want to derive that into the 5.2 and other clauses. It is purely, the your own decision, how you want to, further draft and further document
Yeah,
so
but
that
5.
it helps. Yeah.
Yeah, but 5.2H says that it need to be explained. So I was just
Yeah.
trying to understand kind of an example, if you can throw an example that, okay, this policy defines XYZ like this, which gives an authority and independence of
So
an
if
AB
you
compliance.
if you give an example of a certain scope
Right.
activity, I can further explain it. Otherwise, my
Okay.
explanation will be general.
ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है.
Yeah. So the,
Okay.
see the moment you bring out a specific case that I'm into an inspection activity or I'm into a supply chain
Let's take,
activity.
yeah, I'm into inspection and testing activity.
Okay.
Yeah,
So if you are into inspection and the
testing,
certification, that kind of an
testing,
activity,
testing.
so
Yeah.
maybe you can say how I will have a control upon my the first level of the inspectors or the second level of inspector when we are going to meet the intent of my ABMS policy, and how they are going to have a interface with the clients, and maybe with the subcontracting of the inspectors, or maybe the review of the inspection report given by the subcontracted inspector, and so on. So that is the way the linkages can be explained. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The
Yeah.
organization also complies to ISO 17020, which is an inspection body requirement, accreditation requirement under NABCB. So
Right.
some references from there, because that is a very exhaustive standard, for any IB inspection body to function
Yeah.
within any part of the world. So in India, 17020 accreditation is done by NABCB under QCI. So those policies are already there in place, and those the one which you said about the first level inspector, second level inspector,
Yeah.
no decisions are been given by them directly. Always they are reviewed by the next level, so that there is no there has to be interference of approval, so that there is a less risk of having a bribery in place or some
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I think. So you mean that intent only, right?
Yeah, that in place. But I always say, when we conduct this kind of webinar, particularly for a situation where there is IMS implementation today, globally we see most of the organizations have got a situation where various standards are being implemented into the organization. So when we look into that, we have to be really careful. When we are talking of 17020, or when we are talking of 45,000, or when we are talking of a health and safety of an inspector, when we are going for a third party or second party inspection, we need to go through a traveling very carefully when we are talking of another standards implementation, which is AB we are talking of today. So the lines are very thin, and we need to draw our documentation and discussion when we are going for AB implementation. We look into it at carefully, that you see what is the first level, third level inspectors interference with respect to AB policy implementation. So that is what is the key. We have seen into third party auditing that there are various senior, intelligent qualified auditors, but when it comes to IMS, and particularly when we are attempting to a new standard, they sometimes miss as the implementer, as in first party, second party, third party auditors. So that care has to be taken care of. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Understand. So you
Uh,
represent TNV system certification, right?
yeah, absolutely. I'm the vice chairman of the company.
With Vice Chairman of the. Okay.
Yeah.
No, first time I'm interacting. That's the reason why I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is IAS accredited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's IAS USA, which is IF member
Yeah,
under
yeah,
MLA.
correct.
Okay.
There are multi,
Okay.
national organization. They are having accreditation for, I don't know, no, maybe the largest standards applicability they have, and they have started mainly
I
from inspections activity, then came into management system certification. Yeah,
I know IAS, yeah, USA.
yeah,
I
yeah,
browsed through
yeah.
website.
Correct.
Hmm. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? किसी और का कोई सवाल है तो बताइए. सूर्यकांत.
हेलो
हाँ सूर्यकांत, कोई सवाल है आपका? मुझे ऐसा लगा आप कुछ पूछने वाले हैं.
हेलो
हेलो, हाँ बोलो.
यस हेलो हाँ सर माय क्वेश्चन इज
या.
which activity are prohibited under the anti-bribery policy?
Which activity is prohibited? Any activity which is going against the anti-bribery policy of the organization is prohibited. You see, the bribery in any way, if you look at the concept, is prohibited. But when I said in the beginning that bribery was there it is there, it will always remain there. That is what has been discussed conceptually from the formulation of these standards and these kind of policy. They were given different names earlier, and now it has been formulated as a standard in 2016 after a lot of discussions and deliberations. So the thought are always going on. We need to see that it becomes zero ultimately by the implementation. But all those activities who are going against our policy and objectives of bribing are prohibited. It may be an activity by a peon, by a stores manager, or by a driver, or by a marketing person. All these are prohibited. Yeah. Even when we get into the details of the standard, there are gifts, there are the other kind of obligation defined into various other clauses and functions when we go into clause 7 and clause 8. But yes, they are there, they will be there. I mean, you cannot avoid it, but prohibition is one of the requirement of the policy to see that yes, we can control it. As an inspection, when I started my career from DNV, and I had a neighbor, I can give you a clear example from the BIS into the Diwali and New Year function. There were traffic jams in front of our houses because every time these gifts and these things were being offered. I do not know how to control that yet, but they are all prohibited. So as an organization, we made policy. We will accept as an inspector, as an auditor, something as a which is a monogram, which is a product of the company as a souvenir, but otherwise it is all prohibited as a concept. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. अपूर्व, आपका कोई सवाल?
No, sir, I don't have one. If anyone else has any questions, they can please ask.
So, okay, thank you very much. Anybody has a question later on, Apurva will explain. They can be
Yeah.
asked further as an ongoing
So,
process. Yeah.
in case the rest of the participants do not have any questions as of now, so I would suggest that this particular webinar will be uploaded on our YouTube channel known as TNV Academy and will be available for public view, absolutely free. So you can watch this particular webinar as many times as you want, including other webinars as well, which we have conducted till now. And in case you have any questions at that particular point of time, you can always put in your questions in the comment section of the video, and we will be transferring those questions to Mr. Ajay Bajpai, and he will be really happy answering them. We can now come to the conclusion of this particular session, and I would say that first of all, we have been really benefited by the knowledge and sheer excellence shared by Mr. Ajay Bajpai on such a vast and complex terminology, which is anti-bribery policy, as this particular standard is recently introduced into the ISO family. So I can say with much confidence that I personally has been benefited by the knowledge shared by Mr. Ajay Bajpai on anti-bribery policy and the concepts which the policy should include and the concept which should it not include. And I would say that we are really glad to have him on board for sharing his thoughts on all these beneficial topics and words. I can also say with much confidence that our participants must have enjoyed the context of today's webinar, and it will definitely add value to their expertise and domain of work. I thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of TNV Academy, Mr. Ajay Bajpai, for giving your valuable time and accepting our invitation to be the guest speaker for today. I also thank with a very fresh heart to all our participants for taking out time from their busy schedule and joining us in the webinar today. I would say that we will be conducting these webinars in future as well. So in case you want to join us in any of the webinar, you can simply join the link, and we will be really happy to have you on board. I hope to see you all again soon. Wish you all a very best of luck on behalf of TNV Academy for your future endeavors. Thank you for your participation. Thank you so much.